thank you for tuning in to Steele Creek Explorer. I'm your host, Jermey Stout, naturalist and nature center manager here at Steele Creek Park. We've not seen you in a while, so we thought we'd take this time to reintroduce you to the park. Of course, we are the third largest municipal park in the state of Tennessee and have 2,228 acres, and most of that is wilderness. So today we're going to take you briefly into the 5 habitats we have right here in Steele Creek, coming up after this. Welcome back to Steele Creek Explorer. I'm your host, naturalist Jermey Stout, and here we are in the first and smallest of our habitats we're going to introduce you to today, though still very important. This is our park's native grassland. Many people, as they drive through, they see this and they think this is just an area where lawnmowers got lazy. Well, of course, this is not the case. This right here is a carefully planned and maintained natural habitat that also serves as a living laboratory for us to learn about this habitat that should be here and many of its inhabitants. So let's go take a closer look. We're sitting along a game trail that we found here in the grassland habitat, and even though this habitat's home to some of the rarer species in the park, it's also home to some of the more familiar faces that we see. And what we found here appears to be the trail of a white-tailed deer, although we do have groundhogs and even a den of red foxes that call this grassland home. And if you follow this trail behind me, you can see around my feet where just much of the grass is laying down. Of course, we all know that plants like to reach for the sun, so when you find plants that are laying down, you know that something has put them down. So right here we have an extensive use of this grassland as a safe haven during the nights and even the early morning hours for white-tailed deer and probably even some other mammal species. Well, you can't talk about a grassland habitat without talking about some of the plant life that makes it unique. Many people are surprised to learn that most of the plants that you have growing in your yard, especially the grasses and shrubs, are actually non-native and were brought to this country from Europe and Asia and other places. Well, what makes our grassland unique is that we have planted many grasses and shrubs that are native to the southeastern United States. As you look out behind me, you can see a lot of the Kentucky bluegrass. We've got pokeweed shrubs popping up, which are a favorite food plant for birds and other animals. But one thing that sticks out to me, we have a young tulip poplar right here. And you might be thinking, well, hey, tulip poplars are native. Sure they are. This is even the state tree of Tennessee. But in the grassland habitat, this tree is going to have to be removed and planted elsewhere because this will eventually overtake the grassland, shade it out, and it will just become forest if we don't tend to it. Well, now let's venture from the smallest habitat we have in Steele Creek Park and go into the largest. Let's take a look at what's happening in the deep woods of Steele Creek. Well, we've just made it out of the grasslands and only a short hike into the park's largest habitat. Here we are in a deep, pristine forest that actually makes up more than 2,000 acres of Steele Creek Park. So let's go take a closer look at some of what this habitat has to offer. Well, obviously, it goes without saying that trees are what make the forest habitat unique, but specifically trees like this. Large trees that go 100 or more feet into the air. Some of the trees in our park can be well more than 100 years old. And if you look at me right now, they provide shade. Shade is one of the most important aspects of the forest ecosystem because it helps control moisture that's in the ground and also just provides the preferred habitat for numerous of the park species. Well, many folks are surprised when they get into deep woods at often how little green there is on the ground. But it's precisely this shady, moist environment that allows the growth of some of our most spectacular species like these flowers. Yes, I said flowers. Most folks, when they see these, think that it's some kind of fungus. But this is not a fungus. This is one of our rarer wildflowers that are found right here in Steele Creek Park. And it's called Indian pipe for its strange shape. It looks almost like a pipe that's stuck inverted into the ground. You say, well, aren't plants supposed to be green? Well, you'd be right, except this is a plant that is adapted to live without the use of light, so it has no chlorophyll. This plant right here has no chlorophyll. It acts very much like a fungus, but it is a true wildflower. Well, of course, because the woodlands are our largest habitat in Steele Creek Park, it's also some of the most diverse. It's in these woods, in this park, that you can find some of our wilder animals like bobcats, gray foxes. Our deer spend most of their time in here. Plenty of raccoons. You name it, you can probably find it inside Steele Creek Park if it occurs in this region. So now stay tuned, and we're going to bring you, after the break, to some of the park's wetter environments. Well, welcome back to Steele Creek Explorer. I'm your host, Jermey Stout, and here I'd like to show you just a little bit of our first aquatic habitat we're going to take you to today. This, of course, is a freshwater stream. Very common in this region, and this right here is what gives Steele Creek Park its name. This is Steele Creek. Many of the fish species that you can find in this park, you find in the creeks. Even the larger species like bass and carp, oftentimes when they're young, will seek refuge in the shallower water of the creeks. Also, this is where we find a diverse array of what we call macroinvertebrates. Lots of little tiny critters that live in the water that can actually give you a really good assessment of your overall water quality inside of an area. So let's go ahead and take a look on and check out the lake habitat. Well, we've just hiked a short way upstream and we arrive at our next freshwater habitat. This is Steele Creek Park Lake. Our lake is 58 acres in size, and like almost every lake in the state of Tennessee, it is man-made. We only have one lake in the state that's not, and it's on the west end. But even though it's man-made, it's still a very important habitat for many of the wildlife that live in our region. Of course, we know this is where a lot of the larger fish species live. We have a lot of carp in this lake. We have some monster largemouth bass, channel catfish, and of course we've got a whole host of bluegill and other sunfish, which we'll briefly introduce you to later. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and walk back downstream and check out our wetland. Well, all right, we've just made it back, and here we are in one of our wetlands. Now, the term wetland can refer to many different kinds of habitats. Specifically, this habitat is called a vernal pool or a springtime pool. Many folks see it this time of year and they call me up all concerned and say, Jeremy, you got a big problem. I was out at the wetland the other day, there's not a drop of water in it. Well, that's actually a good thing that this wetland dries out every summer and fall. Because you may not know it, but we live in the salamander capital of the world. This little tiny area of northeast Tennessee, southwest Virginia, western North Carolina. We have more species of salamander right here than the continents of Europe and Asia combined. We have more salamanders than the rainforests do. And this is the habitat that they need to breed and have their young and lay their eggs. This is it. And if it stayed wet all year round, then you'd have fish in here. And guess what fish love to eat? Salamander eggs and babies. Well, we've just been out in the wetland for about 5 minutes, and we've already turned up this little guy right here, just a baby. This right here, you may not be able to see at home. He's actually got spots all over him, and those two longitudinal lines going down his back. This is a young leopard frog. Definitely this year's hatchling, and I had mentioned the salamanders, but of course these vernal ponds are incredibly important for frogs and toads as well. So let's go ahead and turn him loose back where we found him. Oh, there you go, little guy. Well, there's one thing that I can impart on you viewers at home, and that is the smell right now. Another interesting thing about this wetland habitat is the flourishing of anaerobic bacteria, which that's a bunch of scientific jargon for bacteria that tend to give off sulfur dioxide as a byproduct. So we're really treated with this rotten egg smell, because though this wetland's dried out, it's not all that dry just yet. So you guys stay tuned and we'll take you back inside the Nature Center and show you what we've got when we get there. Welcome back to Steele Creek Explorer. Of course, I'm your host, Jermey Stout, and here we are back in the Steele Creek Park Nature Center. For those of you who haven't been here before, or maybe it's been a little bit too long, thought I'd tell you just a little bit about what we do here and what we're about. We're a full-service nature center, and we offer a number of live exhibits and interactive exhibits. We're open 7 days a week all throughout the year, though those hours do change seasonally. So always give us a call at 423-989-5616. We also offer a whole host of educational programming free of charge for your organized nonprofit group. We do everything from hikes, workshops, seminars, tours of the Nature Center. You just give us a shout. In the meantime, let's take a quick look around at some of our exhibits. This is one of the locals' favorites exhibits here in the Nature Center, mostly because of his really pleasant attitude. Our fully grown snapping turtle. Of course, you'd never want to be this close to one in the wild. Here we have two of our sliders in the Nature Center, two different species. We have the red-eared slider, which is very common here in Steele Creek, and we also have a river cooter. You might recognize him by those incredibly long fingernails. And I did say him because that's one of the ways you can tell slider turtles apart. The males have very long claws. Though it's not a rare resident of our local area, the spotted salamander is often rarely seen. This is because even despite its bright coloration, they spend almost their entire lives underground. Many visitors, when they first see this animal, automatically think bluegill. What many don't realize is that we have many species of sunfish here in our area, and bluegill is only one kind. This is a sunfish species called a warmouth, named for the paint-like stripes along its mouth. Well, of course, we've only just shown you a fraction of the exhibits that we have inside the building, and we've only shown you a minute part of Steele Creek Park itself. So stay tuned to BTN-TV for more episodes of the Steele Creek Explorer, and in the meantime, you come out to Steele Creek Park where you can be the explorer.